So thank you everyone for joining today, and hope you enjoy workspaces of the future and the way technology will define them. What we really want to do is just try and show people some of the technology that could be added into your workspace, and maybe give you some ideas about how you might want to use it, and to really to make yourselves a bit more digitalized. So without further ado, we will start the presentation. So a few surprises or not post-pandemic, this is a bit of a game of bingo of workplace slogans, but people talk about recalibration, people moving to secure better quality buildings. Maybe there's a demand for better quality rather than more buildings, more hospitality-like amenities through the building. Definitely a drive to make the office a destination rather than an obligation. Through the Gensler Research Institute, we established that those in high-performing workplaces want to come to the office more, which not a surprise, I guess, but definitely something to think about if you're trying to create the workplace of the future. In terms of expectations, they've definitely been amplified post-COVID, and workers do want a more diversified workplace. Younger generations, a clear preference for hospitality-infused experiences, whilst the more mature workers, such as myself, prefer a blend of business and hospitality. Top reasons to come to the office from the research: to focus on my work, I guess obvious, but we've just ringed a few of the ones that are more prevalent to what we do. So access to technology. It's interesting, people might be drawn to different elements depending on your work function, but from our perspective, it's great to see people wanting to get access to technology, people wanting to access specific spaces, materials and resources, and that could be technology driven. Number 12 there, to be part of the community, and a big part of what we do is we try not to be a company that supplies big brother like tech. We're trying to supply technology that will enhance the workplace, that the workers will enjoy, the employees will enjoy it, as well as maybe the people running the facilities. And definitely access to amenities, down there at number 14. And then some of the takeaways we got from the Gensler report I've put in the 4 corners, and I've added a few words in between that I think are important if you're trying to build a workplace of the future. And there's some good pointers in there, really. So, providing an ecosystem of diverse spaces to support new mixes. The quality of the workplace experience is a key driver in influencing whether someone wants to work in an organization or in an office. The high performance workplace thing again, which I think is really interesting, and the employees wanting to have a more diverse experience. I think those are quite key. And then this is my own one, data driven. I think this is where the magic can really happen, and in a good way. People think about sensors and IoT as being used to calibrate whether somebody's working, whether they're using the toilet too much. That's not what it's about. What it's really about is data being the bridge, the connector, the power of the workplace of the future. Not a big brother hat, really. It's something that should benefit everybody, and we'll circle back to this in a moment as we take a look at a second piece of research that we're going to use today. The top 3 megatrends affecting the workplaces for years to come. You've got workplace strategy, you've got ESG and sustainability, and you've got smart buildings. And if we look at the workplace strategy, you've got workplace audits, you've got understanding space utilization, considering the future of where your business is going and how it might be changing, embracing and understanding technology that might help digitalize your workplace. And then you've got considering and trying to control costs in a time when escalating costs has been on the uptick, really. You've got ESG and sustainability, and in the reports it's described as uneven at best, with not enough companies setting core strategic outcomes. The latest news suggests many are dropping ESG as less interesting than profits in a tough climate. But it will swing back, even, whether it's by choice or by demand. Political and societal pressures, and of course the tangible benefits that action delivers in terms of profits. You can be sustainable and profitable, and the companies that put the people, the planet and profits on the same footing, it says, will be the best positioned to achieve all three. And then of course there's smart buildings, I guess. We talk about smart a lot, and it's my favorite topic, and the experts agree that smart buildings and their ecosystems remain in the earliest stages of development. Basically, they're not smart. And here we return to the earlier mantra of data driven. But to really benefit, the spaces must be unified, borderless, and genuinely smart. So with the research in mind, why would you want to look at AssetBook? Well, it helps to remove the silos. It's been part of the built environment for years. Huge companies creating proprietary systems that sadly only worked with their own products, ranges, or areas of expertise. And as we've seen, if their market share is not exciting enough, they often leave the market, discontinue support, and users are often left with devices that are technically doorstops. But also, how pointless is having a system that is blinkered from other interdependent systems? A heating system working on overdrive while the air conditioning is competing with it, a virtual battle to the death. Or an extractor above a fryer in a McDonald's working 24/7, even though the fryers maybe only operate 6 hours of the day. And we call them smart buildings. There's been lots of buildings over the years that have melded together certain software and hardware to try to unify disparate systems with, limited success. And by the time you've spent years and hundreds or millions of pounds on your system, you've kind of lost your appetite. So what about a productized IoT and a borderless system? Think of it like Lego. There are other brands available, I feel compelled to say that. But think of it in reverse. In the olden days, you were given a bucket of Lego and you were asked to create anything you could imagine, you could make, all different sized pieces and colors. Product IoT is very much the same in that we can give you all the parts you need, and they're easy to put together to create your own masterpiece. And now what could have taken months or even years, in some cases, can be assembled, connected, and ready to test, sometimes in hours. Speed to deployment, zero or almost no development cost, and nothing to manufacture mean that your business can be ultra agile in addressing new problems or adding new services or solutions. But how does it look? Well, this is what it looks like. The power of choice illustrated. Low cost Zigbee desk occupation sensors, backwards compatible DALI 2 lighting, Bluetooth HVAC control, Wi-Fi enabled people counting, pushing results maybe through a REST API, IAQ sensors monitoring the air quality via Zigbee, whilst the waste management system works perfectly using LoRaWAN due to the longer distances needed for the communications. Company vehicles being tracked capably using 5G or a similar cellular service. A symphony of the best in class, and not a proprietary roadblock in sight. Just the ability to build scalable systems based on the performance, cost, and of course, open standards. You pick the devices from over 1 million devices and currently over 10,000 manufacturers. If the devices exist, the chances are they can be integrated. And you can build your own future. Decide what's important to your business. How smart do you want your office to be? What is important to you? Different views, different reports. Create your own authority levels. Scale from one device up to an infinite amount across the globe. So if we look at AssetBook in 10 steps, multi-protocol, but borderless, one login. You choose the protocols that you would like. The ability to define the user levels, set the ones you like for different users, analyze, report, and gain insights on any or all the elements of your organization in one spot. No silos mean more information and ability to overlay more data points. Push safety critical information to users, multiple users in real time. If the lift is broken, if there's a flood in the kitchen, warn users, increase lighting levels to alert to issues. Then we've got use location-based systems to asset track. Find that printer that you need, or a ladder that's usually in the cleaner's cupboard, but it's not today when you really need it. Create geofences with outcomes, or locate visitors via smart visitor badges so that you know where they are in the building and they don't end up in a confined space. Map the people, count them, map them, heat map them, so that you can see that the on-site restaurant is full or empty, or a meeting room is over capacity and a potential COVID issue. Match entry cards to live heat mapping so that I can check if my colleagues are working today. And if they're at the office today, I can join them for lunch or grab a coffee with them. You know, in this day of hybrid working, it'd be great to know who's around and who I can go and have a chat with about business. Then you've got building and operating your own smart system to make it whatever your business needs, rather than a hologram of what you need. Future-proof your investment and your own destiny as a digitalized business. And then, of course, devices communicating across the platform, regardless of the type or protocol. Generate new services this way. Smart emergency lighting that tests itself. Timestamps for safety. Help staff to be more connected, valued, and productive. To generate more income and, of course, create incremental savings across your estate to drive down the costs. So AssetBook can be the solution to the smart buildings of the future. And I think it's, you know, important for the users to try and work out what it is that they like and what is important to them. So I'm going to hand over to Dan, and he's going to walk you through some of the things that we've done recently that will give you an idea of how AssetBook works.
Thank you for that, James. Hi all, my name's Dan Suarez from AssetBook UK, and today I'm going to run through a few project examples which pertains to the presentation that James just gave. Obviously, we work with some customers far and wide, NHS trusts, government installations, etc. The examples that we're going to show you today are live sites that we do have permission to show. If anyone would like to delve into them any further, please reach out to us afterwards, and we'll be more than happy to show you some more specific examples. So the three deployments that we're going to show today are going to focus on three elements of the workplace of the future. That's the speed of deployment for IoT, integrated business systems, how these systems can integrate into your business, and the journey that that provides to the occupants and users. And then a little bit specific to do with ESG, or more pertinent to the energy element of that, and how that can be deployed to gain further understanding within the building of the future. So the first one is a partner showroom deployment that we did. The customer in this particular case is a high-end fit-out company with a purpose-built building, which it comprises of warehousing, office, and most specifically showroom. We worked with this customer to deploy technology so they could then allow their customers to interact with it and see how the workplace of the future can be enacted at a very early stage and during fit out or material requirements. And I just want to go through the process quickly of how we did this, and again with the one eye on speed of deployment here. So initially we make a wish list with the customer. The customer had a few particular requirements. They have an unmanned reception area, which they wanted to automate and gain some information on. Indoor air quality obviously is a huge talking point and trend, specifically with their customers within the built environment. So they wanted to incorporate that technology into what they were doing. Water leak detection was a key point. They wanted to be able to do demonstration events where people could interact with the technology live within their site, and there was some form of live interaction within the environment. There was an element of lighting control that we wanted to incorporate within the building itself. And then things like asset charts, so we could understand, what meeting rooms and boardrooms were being used the most, how the showroom was being used, some of the energy data, some of the indoor air quality data, stuff that they could create rich and meaningful charts for, to not only understand the space utilization itself, but to obviously demonstrate to their customers how easily it could be deployed and what sort of information you get. And of course, occupancy, understanding what areas were being used, how they're being used, specifically within the showroom, where most of the focus, when they had customers over, where most of the focus was, where customers spent most of their time. Their showroom segregated into various different areas with various different materials, and they wanted to understand exactly how people were interacting within their showroom. So once we made, there was one other really key point on this, is they wanted minimal disruption during installation. So minimal wiring, minimal disruption, quick as possible, with the least requirement for expertise like electricians or commissioning, etc. So we created a tenancy for the customer. We added a site map drawing, which you can see there. And then we ordered some off-the-shelf parts that were available from the wish list. We worked with the customer to identify what type of products would be applicable to achieve their goals. And we were able to order some off-the-shelf parts that arrived very, very quickly. The next stage was to deploy the devices. You see a selection down the left-hand side of some of the devices that we deployed, like IAQ displays. So, users could see immediately what was going on within the environment while they were there. PIRs, which included lux level sensors, temperature sensors, water leak sensors, a specific lamp that they wanted to control within reception, which is one of the most sophisticated lamps I've ever seen in my life, and very big and beautiful lamp that they wanted to onboard onto the system. Once all these devices are connected to AssetBook, we locate them on the maps. The location part of AssetBook is quite important because it allows us to do things like zones. The geolocation element of it allows us to do other functions within AssetBook that adds value, which you wouldn't normally get on the manufacturer's specific website. But equally, geolocation is just part of the metadata overlay that we can add onto any AssetBook that's connected to AssetBook. Any asset connected to AssetBook. So the metadata that we can include are things like profiling, energy usage, specifications, various other overlay information that can sit on top of the devices to help perform and interact with the site. And the important thing is, once the devices are deployed and connected to AssetBook, it's collecting data immediately. So what we have is we have rich information coming through from all of these data points which we can report on, and we can create charts and analytics for the customer to better understand the space usage. There's some elements of this installation which allows for immediate aggregation of the immediate view of the automation side of things. So what you can see here is on the left hand side is a seminar that we did to demonstrate the technology. That's one of the groups of the seminar. You can see, you know, some information that's pulled from the dashboard of the system to give you live information as to what's going on within the building. Things like illuminance values, temperature, humidity, pressure, IAQ, etc. Once these devices are all connected into AssetBook, we can then do more than just report on them. We can create some cross-platform automation. So on that left-hand side there, what you see is the lighting is controlled via AssetBook, and depending on certain parameters within the showroom, this is just a small section of the showroom, of course, depending on certain parameters within the showroom, we create automations to add value to the customer. So we did something quite quirky here where all the lights turn green if somebody walks into the showroom and nobody's actually in the showroom at the moment. If they walk into the showroom and there's already occupancy in there, i.e. somebody's already doing a demonstration, the lights will flash orange to allow the visitor to understand that there's something going on within that room. Things like the water leak detection. The customer wanted to be able to something very demonstrable that they could show clients as they arrive. So literally the water leak detector gets put in the bottom of the sink. They turn the sink on. A notification will come through to certain users to notify them that there's a water leak. The lights in that area will flash to notify the users that are not on AssetBook within that area that something's going on. On the right-hand side, you can see the very lovely boardroom that they've got there, which again is a functional boardroom, but also a showpiece for them, for their clients. And just understanding information that regarding this installation with regards to occupancy, light levels, the environmental element of the building. One of the interesting parts of this project was for the client to understand how they themselves use their own meeting and boardrooms, which ones were more readily used, which ones were more popular, when they were being used, how they were being used. And an important thing to note about this particular application is, with the exception of some light switches that required installation and some lighting, all of the rest of the devices deployed in this site were deployed as battery operated devices. They were very discrete devices that were located around the building in next to no time at all. I think the installation of all of the devices, with the exception of the light switches, took approximately 2 hours, and that includes commissioning them and then probably an extra 20 minutes or so to put them, to locate them on AssetBook and create some charts. The customer then took over the AssetBook tenancy in this particular instance, created their own dashboards, started to create their own automations in a very easy way. So immediately started to get value from the installation. So that's a really good example of a speed of deployment project where we get some really rich data points, start to identify the key elements of the site. Customer sees immediate value in it, and now we're deploying further systems into there. So we're onboarding HVAC, deploying camera systems within certain areas so they can get live views of areas. All of this through AssetBook, and we're just talking about taking control of the access gate front and deploying some employee tags for employees to be able to use the services and interact with the technology a little bit better. The next project that I want to show you is more to do with the integration into business systems, and it's really around the journey for an end user of how they would interact. What you see here is a hotel. Equally, this could be an educational facility, any other hospitality facility, or a commercial workspace like an office. And around the edges, what you can see is a selection of the assets that we deployed within this project. So you can see things like room thermostats, various temperature sensors, IAQ sensors around the building, contacts for mission critical areas, emergency lighting, EV charging banks, and even the vending machine within the building. So once all of these devices are connected and operational for AssetBook, we take control of them. So the EV charger being a good example is these are just standard EV chargers, but now that they're connected to AssetBook, we're able to lock and unlock them for users and charge accordingly as well. So I'll get onto that in just a second. So the journey for somebody in this sort of environment is things like access control, being able, from the temperature sensors and taking control of the HVAC system, we can create microclimates within a building. So in the hotel environment, of course, we're talking about rooms, but in an office space, we might be talking about meeting rooms or specific areas, or combining information about user preferences across a floor with multiple desks and offering an average of lighting control or temperature to meet the customer's requirements. Access control for users to certain areas, or access control to certain assets as well. So access control for the EV chargers in this case, or in a commercial environment, the printers, etc. We've got asset use in respect to any of the assets that are connected to AssetBook within the environment would be accessible by those users, all with the same card that could be issued to them, the same card that they use for access control, for argument's sake, which would be the same card that they would use for EV charging, or ultimately doesn't even need to be a card. A user on AssetBook can use their mobile phone or QR codes to unlock devices. We have smart lighting, temperature control, being able to book meeting rooms, being able to book certain facilities within a building, all through a central point. And all of this gets profiled as the user, so we can bring that information back into cost centers, we can bring it back into payroll, we can bring it into HR systems, and the system can be used to not just count people, but to understand what they're using, their movements, their preferences, etc., ensuring that the building runs more proficiently for its occupants. And of course, live updates, so being able to send information to users, things like there's the lift is out of service, or there's a water leak, or cleaning schedules, or even behavioral reinforcement, where we can push information like we've managed to achieve our ESG goals, or our energy saving for last year was X. It gives a real link between the users of the building and the technology within it. And the workplace of the future is not just good for the employees. So we wanted to touch very briefly on ESG and sustainability, or more specifically the energy side of how technology can be deployed within the workplace of the future. So we've got a pretty crude drawing here of a building. These segregated spaces could be offices, they could be rooms, they could be floors, flats, whatever. But within the built environment, we can do metering at the meter level, at the incoming level, and that gives us rich information as to how the building's performing from an energy point of view. And we can also do that further down at circuit level, where we take a circuit and we can understand what that circuit's using as far as energy usage goes. What I want to talk about here is just the granularity that you can use within AssetBook. So what we've highlighted in this particular drawing is some commercial lighting. So Kasambi, for those of you who don't know, are one of the forefront wireless lighting control manufacturers in the world, and we've got some Tridonic in the middle there, which are at the forefront of emergency lighting and other lighting components. By connecting these devices to AssetBook, it offers us a granular view of this specific use case. So in this case, lighting. Equally, small power as well. So connected sockets will give us the opportunity to understand the usage of the small power within the building, and also allows us to profile devices such as heaters or printers and use automations to ensure that we're not wasting energy in either of these two facets, depending on the parameters. So, for example, a heater on outside of hours, or a printer sitting idle at 3 o'clock in the morning, using energy in a large office space where there may be, hundreds of printers, for argument's sake. It allows us to profile those devices and to take them offline and to cut the power to them as we see fit to drive energy savings. Even from a small power point of view, we're able to indicate on the device itself with LEDs the carbon intensity of the energy. So we can drive behavioral change within this as well. So circuit level monitoring gives us a clear understanding of energy usage by data. And here's an example on AssetBook of some circuit level monitoring where we can see the three-phase facility voltage, the current. We can look at the individual circuits and understand, you know, what the different circuits, Office 1, 2, 3, and 4 are using as a live. And obviously all of this information is recorded, but it limits us in what we can and what the end client can do to drive change, because the granularity of it is limited to just that office or just that space. If we move forward here to an example of lighting specific, so granular information allows us to segregate out energy usage with key metrics for specific use cases. So things like lighting, small power, HVAC. Incidentally, not only do light and small power and HVAC represent the largest part of an energy bill for the built environment, they also represent the largest waste energy as well. So I think lighting, HVAC followed by lighting, followed very closely by small power. These are the biggest energy waste elements within the built environment. So being able to granularly segregate these out and understand what's going on is quite important if you want to drive change and really hone in on energy savings and ESG targets. So this information can then be separated and combined on AssetBook to offer valuable insights. It will illustrate precise return on investments for upgrade, drive behavioral change, as we discussed, gives you the opportunity to cut costs and improve efficiencies. And what you see down here is on the left-hand side is a map with a site. All of those dots are connected lighting assets. You can see the zones where they've been segregated out. And on the right-hand side is the energy dashboard on AssetBook, which has been created from that, where we can now have a look at the energy usage specifically pertaining to lighting for the individual areas as well. So we can start to have a look at the overlay use, occupancy data and use over the actual energy being used by the lights. And again, applicable for HVAC and small power, but in this particular example, we're talking about lighting. And then we take some of that information and offer up some reporting information just underneath that, where it's cost saving energy. I don't think anyone's paying 35p per kilowatt hour at the moment, but that's certainly what it was when we did this. Shows the energy savings on the previous usage. Also gives some key ESG data like CO2 emission reductions, tree saves, cars off the road. But the granularity element of being able to look at the individual connected devices rather than just the top level of understanding, where you can really hone in on what particular devices are using what energy and drive change from that. So just to finish off, what is AssetBook? It's literally that. It's a book of assets. It's a ledger for all your connected assets and digitalization. It records data for reporting and analytics on any parameter that matters to your business, identifying the parameter that matters and a product that's that you're able to use to either record or drive actions surrounding that parameter. Automations and notifications based on live information from any data point. So we can do cross-platform automations to allow certain criteria to happen automatically, or we can notify relevant people if it requires human intervention to make some changes within the building. But we're not limited to any one topology. We're not limited to any one device type. It allows us to expand the connected devices and your asset ledger to include almost anything that you can think of. It's a library of operational data to better inform future decisions and improve or reduce costs. So as soon as these devices are connected to AssetBook, AssetBook's recording this information, and it's there at fingertips. You can run analytics processes to overlay information on top of each other, and maybe certain sectors or silos that were originally never able to communicate with each other, as James described earlier. You're able to look at occupancy data versus light levels, which might be something that's quite common at the moment, but having a look at indoor air quality and how that's affected by occupancy versus how that's affected by HVAC, it becomes very insightful for the end user to identify where and how their system is being used. And ultimately, it's an ecosystem of connectivity, allowing for fast and easy deployment and system expansion. Fast and easy deployment is obviously very important, and technology is moving really quickly, and being able to apply this technology to the built environment requires speed and ease. And system expansion, is ensuring that the workplace of the future remains future proof, allows you to be able to continue to expand. It doesn't tie you into one particular protocol. So like in the lighting industry, where you might start to deploy lighting under one protocol, you might be fixed into that protocol moving forwards because you have a system that runs it. AssetBook allows you to it's almost a pick and mix of technology, where you can deploy hybrid systems, singular systems, expand, subtract as you see fit, which I think is one of the most important things when deciding on how to spend money and how to deploy technology. You want to be sure that in the future you're able to continue to expand. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a clear understanding of how AssetBook can be deployed for the workplace of the future. Should anyone want any live demos of any of these sites, or a little bit of a personal interaction with it, then please feel free to reach out. I'll pass back over to my colleague James now, who will open the floor to some questions.
Thanks very much, Dan. Thanks for that. It's a great explainer about the different uses of AssetBook in trying to create the workplace of the future.